The diner clock on the wall ticked loudly, marking another endless minute of Jenny's double shift. Her feet felt like they were on fire, burning inside her cheap, worn-out work shoes. She had been on her feet for 14 hours straight, serving coffee and burgers with a smile she didn't feel. Jenny was 25, but the weight of her responsibilities made her feel 50. She was working 3 jobs just to keep a roof over her head and pay off her sick mother's medical debts. Every dollar she earned was spent before she even got it. Tonight, the diner was busy, and the customers were particularly demanding. But none were worse than the man in booth 4. Mr. Sterling was dressed in a suit that cost more than Jenny made in a year. He had spent the last hour complaining about everything. The coffee was too cold. The soup was too salty. The service was too slow. He snapped his fingers at Jenny whenever he wanted something, treating her like an object rather than a person. Jenny swallowed her pride and apologized again and again, needing the tips desperately. Just then, the little bell above the diner door jingled softly. A man shuffled in, bringing a gust of cold, rainy air with him. He looked like he hadn't had a warm meal or a shower in weeks. His clothes were torn rags, his beard was matted, and he carried a distinct smell of the streets. His eyes were downcast, filled with a deep, agonizing shame. He didn't move toward a table. He just stood near the door, dripping water onto the mat. Most customers ignored him, pretending he was invisible. But not Mr. Sterling. Mr. Sterling looked up from his expensive steak and wrinkled his nose in disgust. "Hey!" Mr. Sterling shouted, causing the whole diner to go quiet. "You can't be in here. You are ruining my appetite." The homeless man flinched as if he had been hit. "I am sorry, sir," the man mumbled, his voice scratchy. "I just wanted a glass of water." "Water? Get out before I call the police," Sterling spat, waving his fork in the air. Jenny saw the look of utter defeat on the homeless man's face. It broke her heart. She knew that look. She felt it herself every time she opened another final notice bill. She ignored Mr. Sterling and walked over to the door. "Sir, you can come sit at the counter," Jenny said softly. The man looked at her, surprised by the kindness in her voice. "Are you sure, miss?" "I don't have any money," he whispered. "It is okay." Jenny smiled sadly. "Water is free." Mr. Sterling stood up, his face turning red with rage. "Waitress, if you serve that trash, I am leaving and I am not paying for this steak." Jenny felt a knot of fear in her stomach. If Sterling walked out without paying, the manager would take it out of her paycheck. She couldn't afford to lose $50. But she looked at the shivering man at the counter, and she knew she couldn't kick him out into the rain. She took a deep breath and made a dangerous choice. She walked behind the counter and poured a large glass of ice water. Then she reached under the counter and pulled out a brown paper bag. It contained a tuna sandwich and an apple, her own dinner that she hadn't had time to eat. She placed the water and the food in front of the homeless man. "Here," she whispered. "Eat up." The man looked at the sandwich as if it were a pot of gold. "Thank you," he choked out, tears welling in his tired eyes. "God bless you." Mr. Sterling slammed his hand on his table. "That is it. Where is your manager?" "You are fired." Sterling pulled out his phone and started dialing. "I know the owner of this entire chain," Sterling boasted loudly. "I am going to make sure you never work in this town again." Jenny fought back tears, terrified that her act of kindness had just ruined her life. The homeless man at the counter stopped eating. He slowly wiped his mouth with a napkin and turned on his stool. "You don't need to call the owner, Mr. Sterling," the homeless man said, his voice suddenly clear and strong. Sterling laughed cruelly. "And why is that, you filthy bum?" "Because I am right here." The man reached up and pulled off his dirty beanie hat. He reached into his ragged jacket and pulled out a wallet made of fine leather. He pulled out a business card and slid it down the counter toward Sterling. Sterling looked at the card, and all the color drained from his face. It read, Arthur Pendelton, CEO and founder of Pendelton Dining Inc. The man wasn't homeless. He was one of the richest men in the state, and he owned all 200 locations of this diner chain. Mr. Pendelton? Sterling stammered, his arrogance vanishing instantly. I didn't recognize you. It was a joke. I was just joking. Mr. Pendelton stood up. He didn't look weak anymore. He looked powerful. Every year, I dress like this and visit my restaurants, Pendelton said coldly. I want to see how my customers and my staff treat the least among us. I want to see who has humanity left in their hearts. He turned his gaze to Jenny, who was frozen in shock. This young woman risked her job and gave up her own food to help a stranger, Pendelton said warmly. She has more integrity in her little finger than you have in your entire expensive suit. Pendelton then looked back at Sterling. I recognize you now, Sterling. You are a regional manager for my downtown branch, aren't you? Sterling nodded weakly, sweat dripping down his forehead. Yes, sir. Not anymore, Pendelton said firmly. You are fired. Get out of my diner. Sterling didn't argue. He grabbed his coat and ran out the door in shame. The diner was dead silent. Pendelton turned to Jenny. Jenny, I'm sorry you had to go through that. Jenny wiped a tear away. It is okay, sir. I was just doing what was right. I know, Pendelton smiled. And kindness like that deserves to be rewarded. He asked Jenny about her life, and she tearfully told him about her mother's debts. The next day, Jenny received a check that paid off every single medical bill. She was also promoted to manager of the diner, with a salary she used to only dream of. Mr. Sterling learned that money doesn't buy class, and Jenny proved that the richest hearts often belong to those who have the least to give.